Welcome to Seattle, home of Wizards of the Coast. I'm your host Rich HAGON, and together we'll go on a journey inside R&D, a journey into Nyx. Theros was Act 1, a world of gods, heroes and monsters, Greek-inspired and inspiring. Born of the Gods, well, that was Act 2. Twists and turns, new plot, new characters, and of course, new mechanics. Now it's time for the grand finale to Theros Block. Will Journey into Nyx show us Greek triumph, or will it be Greek tragedy? Like so many great third acts before it, it's going to show us both.
So when I started at Wizards, I didn't actually think my screenwriting background would be important. But we make 3-act stories, you know, that Theros was Act 1, and Born of the Gods was Act 2, and Journey is Act 3. And one of the things I learned about storytelling is you have to progress your story. You have to start at one place and go to a completely different place. And so what we decided in this block was we started very like traditional Greek sort of setting. We wanted Greek mythology to know it, start very simple, and then we needed to move towards something. We decided to move toward a war, or a game about conflict, and we thought it'd be awesome to have, you know, we established 2 sides, that there's the gods and all their creations, and the mortals and the denizens of the world and their stuff, and that we sort of mixed and matched them early on, and we start dividing them as the block goes along. So by the end, you could make an all, you know, god deck with enchantments and stuff, or you can make an all denizen deck with heroic and monstrous and things that played with those really nicely. And I like the evolution of the block.
And it's exciting to see kind of all the bits come together. And of course, the most exciting part is to see the last 5 gods actually make it onto cards. They were referred to in the previous 2 sets, and it's great to see just the complete pantheon.
Theros, god of passage. If you're on Theros and you happen to die, which happens a lot, your soul must pass the rivers that ring the world till you get to the underworld, and he is the god of that passage.
With Theros, we were trying to put white-black in a different spot, one where one might use extort. Give you a little more chance to play with that mechanic, and we wanted to make it more aggressive. We came up with, hey, if my guys die, Theros won't take them to the underworld unless my opponent pays some life. Then we actually spent a lot of time deciding should it be 2 life or 3 life, and tried it both ways and decided, yeah, 3's right.
There's the idea on Theros that when an individual dies, their family will create a death mask out of clay for them. And basically that's a confirmation that they are who they say they are when they meet Athreos at the riverbank. And when they're taken across, that the clay of the mask is then broken up into coins, and it's used as currency in the underworld.
Eros is the god of victory. His domain includes valor and heroism. You've met his brother, Mogus, who's the god of slaughter, and they both govern the domain of war, but they're kind of the flip sides of the coin. And Eros is the patron god of Akros, and Mogus and Eros are always at each other's throats, and their mortal battleground is Akros.
So with Eros, we wanted to enable an aggressive red-white deck, and Boros Reckoner from Gatecrash is an excellent creature for red-white and provides 3 devotion, so we definitely wanted to play into that. Boros Reckoner 3, Eros 4, make an aggressive deck, maybe even get enough creatures on board to trigger Battalion. It all fits together.
Keranos, the god of storms, is both the god of storms but also the god of inspiration. And it's this idea that, you know, inspiration strikes like a bolt of lightning, and sometimes it's literal with Keranos, but sometimes it's much more about an idea or inspiration.
Keranos is a really interesting god, so he's ties into the nature of prophecy and sort of predicting the future in a way. And so the design actually handed off the current ability, which is very flavorful and captures that sort of prophetic nature. This is a really interesting card for constructed. It potentially enables a blue-red control deck. It stays on the battlefield, it's very difficult to remove, provides you card advantage every turn, or can remove your opponent's creatures. And it's a really strong draw to potentially creating a blue, white, and red control deck, something we might see show up in block constructed.
Krufix is the god of horizons. His domain includes mysteries and time, and even the rest of the pantheon kind of views him as this inscrutable elder god with powers that they don't even understand.
So Krufix is green-blue, and green and blue both grow in different ways. Greens tends to grow your mana, and blue has the most card drawing and tends to draw and grow the size of your hand. So we thought, Well, if you have more mana, you can draw more cards. But if you draw more cards, you're just going to have to discard them. That's why it gives you both the more mana and the unlimited hand size, so you have room to pack it all.
Krufix, God of Horizons, is the green-blue god. The last ability is kind of interesting. So it went through a few changes. Unused mana sits in your pool, becomes colorless. The reason we did this was, if you remember that old card, Upwelling, it kind of mana stuck around through steps and phases. But people found it really fiddly to kind of keep track of what colors they had all the time. So now it's all colorless, but you can pool up that mana as long as you want, save it up for a really big spell. So we expect to see this in a lot of cool decks.
Varika, God of Affliction, her domain includes both healing and death, and it is said that she hid the mysteries of all the secrets of life and the secrets of death in the natural world. And so if you know which plants to look for, you can kill somebody or you can make them better.
One of the big changes that we made with her during development was just actually letting you eventually decide that you could take out creature cards from your opponent's graveyard. You might look at this card and it's like, why does my opponent get a snake if I remove the creature card from their graveyard? I mean, one thing to keep in mind is, I guess we've seen the earlier versions where it only let you take creature cards out of your own graveyard. So in many ways, we made the card strictly better. In some ways, we have weird instances where like it might be received worse because it's like, why am I giving my opponent something? But so like it was already a very good card. We made a tweak at the end to make sure that it had even more versatility, that if your opponent was, say, playing a Reanimator deck or had any sorts of other types of things in their graveyard, that you could hit that too, and that they'd be compensated.
The story of Journey into Nyx begins after the battle where Mogis sent his Minotaurs against Akros, and the mortals were successful or the people of Akros were successful in turning the Minotaurs away. In the wake of that victory, there was a great celebration feast, and Xenaghost used the kind of revelry magic that he's adept at wielding to create enough power that allows him to ascend into godhood, to become the red-green god. And in doing so, many of the gods of the Pantheon believe that the mortals have kind of overstepped their bounds, and Heliod, being one of them, actually pins some of that blame on Elspeth. And she leaves Akros and kind of wanders the wilderness for a while, where she then encounters a group of Leonin, and that's where Ajani kind of comes into the story.
There's something we call box checking in R&D, which is humans are pattern completionists. They like to finish their patterns. And so when you do all but one, there's just this growing desire from the audience to go, you haven't done this last one yet. And so we had entering this block, there were 2 of the 10 possible 2-color combination planeswalkers we'd never done. We hadn't done blue-green, we hadn't done green-white. Okay, Born of the God finally does Kiora, and so people were like, okay, sights focus, we need white-green. And the beauty of it was we knew that we wanted to bring Ajani. He was part of the story. And because we knew that Elspeth was mono-white in the first set, we kind of wanted Ajani not to be mono-white. And we're like, oh, white-green, like the stars align. Like, oh, we knew we got it. And then I had to sort of stay calm as everyone bugged me about the white-green planeswalker. I'm like, I'm sure one day we'll do it.
Ajani is the last planeswalker in the block. He's come to help Elspeth out. Ajani was a challenge just in terms of space. We have a lot of mono-white planeswalkers. Gideon, Elspeth is still in the set. Ajani's in the set, and he's usually mono-white. But being from Naya, the Shard, Ajani has the other colors in his sort of repertoire. So we wanted to differentiate him from Elspeth, so this time we made him white-green. One of the cool things that Ajani gets to do is sort of he's helping out everybody but himself. That's his sort of power suite, where Elspeth creates an army and helps the army. Gideon is sort of the mix-it-up white planeswalker. Ajani is the one that is taking the white piece of the color pie, just helping everybody. He's giving them counters in this card. He's helping you find other cards. And his ultimate is gaining you, the planeswalker, 100 life. He's supercharging you and helping you out. The ultimate actually came from an earlier version of Elspeth in Theros. It was 100 life originally instead of the emblem with +2/+2 and flying, but we moved that away from her because it didn't feel as much like Elspeth. It felt more Ajani because it was helping you out, and we wanted to give Elspeth something that supported the army that she was creating and have Ajani be focused on, helping your team out, helping the planeswalker that summoned him, that sort of thing.
In Journey into Nyx, you can clearly see the story play out on many of the cards. Solidarity of Heroes is a card that shows the reunion of Elspeth and her old friend Ajani. In the card Worst Fears, we see the point in the story where Elspeth is tormented by nightmares of what may come when she enters Nyx to confront Xenagos. In the card Godsend, we see the signature weapon that Elspeth is going to wield against Xenagos in their epic fight. In the card Deicide, that is the epic fight between Elspeth and Xenagos, and this is where Elspeth runs Xenagos through with Godsend. In the card Revel of the Fallen God, we see kind of the wake of the destruction of Xenagos and kind of the effect it has on his followers. They are frantic, it's chaotic. All they know is kind of these chaotic revelries, and they kind of take it to their most extreme with the destruction of their god. Hall of Triumph shows a memorial dedicated to Elspeth's actions and what she was able to accomplish in Nyx and restoring kind of the order of Theros. So if you look at the cards Solidarity of Heroes and you kind of walk all the way through to a Hall of Triumph, you get the whole story of what Journey into Nyx is about.
The natural order has been restored. Elspeth is responsible for making things right. Everything should have been fine. But Heliod felt like he now knows what a planeswalker is. Xenagos was a planeswalker. He knows that Elspeth is a planeswalker. And he feels like that Elspeth can do the same thing that Xenagos did. She too could ascend to become a god, and he feels like he can't allow that to happen. So he takes her sword, he takes the Godsend, and he strikes her with it, and he strikes a mortal blow. And then he says to Ajani, take her back into the mortal realm, because if she dies here, she disperses to nothing. So Ajani carries the dying Elspeth down back into the mortal realm, and she dies. But this is Theros, and that's not the end of the story.